Welcome into a pre-recorded edition of Connor's Takes as we're back after a little hiatus. We took last week off. A little mid off season or you could say beginning of the off season brain break after, the pre-draft hustle and then the post-draft hustle and then the schedule was being released. Good to step away for a week, but we're back and we're better than ever because for the next there's going to be 3 straight episodes, like, back to back to back of Connor's takes. Are you ready for it, Connor? We're gonna
Oh,
be here
always,
this week, next week,
always.
and the following week. So it's 3 straight editions of Connor's takes and hopefully just, give you more content throughout the week as we get into the off season where part of the off season where it's OTAs, then you go right into post June 1 and some of the signings or destinations that you get, then then you kind of go away for a little bit, mandatory start, go away, and then you smack dab ready to go to start the season at training camp. So we're in the part of the off season where you kind of could say it's relaxed, it's a little mellow, it's going to turn into overreaction season, but,
Mhm.
that's what Connor's takes for, we're
Hey,
all for that.
hey, we love overreaction season, especially me. I absolutely love it. This is one of my favorite times of the year. Let's make some wild, wild takes and let's talk about some happenings going on in the league. But if we're going to start with wild takes, which is my entire brand, um, first, let's get to the main topic of, or I wouldn't say main topic. That's the second one,
Uh-huh.
pertains to later. But the first topic that we were going to discuss tonight, the Bills' current schedule. Now that it's finally been released and we finally have an idea of we know who's playing who and when and where
Mhm.
and why and all this other stuff. I wanted to just take a dive into the schedule and just try to put my thoughts on what we can expect, as Bills fans going into this season,
Yeah.
because this is one of those schedules that is the complete opposite of stuff we've seen in the past, even in our own division. My
Exactly.
main point of comparison is the Dolphins having a very, very, very easy schedule multiple years in a row and always
Yes.
blowing it in the big games against the actual competition. So we, as Bills fans this year, cannot look forward to an easy schedule. But I never look forward to easy schedules. I actually prefer harder schedules because the competition will be fierce and nobody can then tell you online, oh, you won an easy division. You had an easy schedule. You didn't play anybody.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. I mean, look at our schedule. You cannot find a weak game on that schedule at all. Like the maybe the weakest would be the New England Patriots twice, but you got to remember they just drafted Drake May. Okay, you actually pulled it up, Paul. That's nice.
Yep.
Um, you got to remember the Patriots just drafted Drake May, and they look to be on the improving path. It's not like this is a bad. It's not like this team is going to be, this
Mhm.
really, really good team right out of the gate. They're learning, but it's still a team that you cannot underestimate. And then the New York, obviously, with Aaron Rodgers, that's going to be a team that you cannot overlook. And you can't overlook the Miami Dolphins. I know we own them, but you can't get to that point where you just assume you're going to beat a team because you've had a string of good games against them, and the one time you lost was because of absolutely horrid playing conditions and everybody getting injured all at once because of the heat. Uh, the thing is you can't rely on stuff like that. You can't just go in there and assume you're going to win any game, especially games, say, against the Tennessee Titans. Another team that might look kind of bad. Last year they weren't really the best team, but they are improving. Will Levis is taking steps
That team
to
went to Miami and beat them.
Mhm. Exactly. Don't remind me, but exactly. The Seattle Seahawks
Uh,
as well, Geno Smith
yeah.
is nothing to shake a stick at. He's actually become the quarterback that everybody thought a long time ago that he would be when he was a member of the New York Jets. So, there's that. Another game to keep in mind is the Indianapolis Colts, and that's more of a wild card than anything else. Um, Anthony Richardson will be entering, really, hopefully he plays a full year, but it's still kind of up in the air on how he's going to be. And we're going to see exactly how he performs when the lights are on. I believe that game is not prime time.
No, that is a 1 o'clock
Yeah,
game in Indy.
yeah, but it'll be Anthony Richardson's season coming back from a injury in his rookie year that kind of derailed
Yep.
that. So, it's unfortunate for Anthony Richardson that it happened, but he will come back better than ever, and they will not be a team to underestimate. I mean, look at it as well. The Arizona Cardinals. Sure, last year they weren't the best. Obviously, having the fourth overall pick kind of proves that. But Kyler Murray's coming back. They just drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. You can't sleep on teams. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence is not a bad quarterback. That is not a bad team. So there's plenty of games on this schedule. Actually, there's plenty of tough games, but there are no easy gimmies. And that's the way I like it. If you win 12 to 13 games with this schedule, then this team is for real. Now, do I think they're
Right.
going to win 12 or 13 games? Maybe. I'd say the ceiling is 12. I don't think this team can win 13 games with this schedule. I'd love it if they prove me wrong, obviously. Let's go win 13 games and have a shot at the one seed. But I think the more realistic ceiling or the more realistic win prediction would be about 11. I think 11-6 would be a reasonable expectation.
Okay.
What do you think, Paul?
Mm, I wouldn't go 11. I mean, you know,
Mhm.
I feel like with this schedule and with obvious expectations, even though, the Bills redid their entire roster during the offseason, during the beginning portions when the season ended, those expectations are still there. You're not, you still are expected, to win your division, to get to the playoffs, have home field advantage, but most importantly, get back to the AFC championship game, which you haven't been there since,
2020.
since 2020. So y- you still have that expectations, even with the young offense and a new offensive coordinator. You still have Sean McDermott, as your head coach. You just signed that contract extension. Why you signed that contract extension or why they gave it to you is to get back to the AFC Championship, but most importantly, bring this city a championship, which they haven't had
Mhm.
since the AFL days, back
Yeah,
in
and
63 and 64.
mhm.
So
Yep.
would 11 be okay? Sure, but does that win you the division? I don't know. I don't think 11 wins you the division, depending on what, New York or Miami does. You know, does Miami, you can't always count on Miami to have their December falls,
Yes, you
every
can.
single year,
Yes, you
but
can.
you can count on it. You don't really don't wanna
Y
count on that, you don't wanna get to that point of the
you
season
don't
kinda like
want
last
to,
year, you're
but
just hoping for
you
it.
don't want to, but you can.
True, true, that is true.
But,
But
actually, to that point, Paul, in about the time when they have that fall off, they play, if you wanna know, the Miami Dolphins about the time from
what's
week
their final 4
let's see,
games?
their final 4 games are the Texans in Houston, at
Oh,
home
okay.
against the San Francisco 49ers,
Oh,
in Cleveland against the Browns, and in New York against the Jets. They have a
there's a chance
very
that stretch they can go 1 and 3 or possibly
they
0 and
could
4.
actually they could I say 1 and 3 because I don't trust Deshaun Watson to be a quarterback. Anything,
Well,
I don't trust
that's
him to be a QB1, not anymore.
right. With the question at QB for Cleveland, but that's Tua
Hmm.
going to Cleveland, you know, what is that? Week 17, in the AFC
Yes.
North in Cleveland, it's going to be cold, possible snow. I mean, the dog pound could be feasting over a potential playoff spot that during that point, or trying to
Nah,
survive to get into the playoffs. Just
that's
imagine,
more like it.
like it's hard for Tua to play under 40 degrees, but just imagine
Mhm.
him have to go into AFC North territory, which the AFC North is on a different level.
Oh, yeah, and, that's for sure. Actually, Paul, to your point, I don't think that the Browns will be in any contention for that, division title at all. I think they'll barely make the playoffs if they do at all. I actually think the Pittsburgh Steelers look like a better team on
Mhm.
paper, and I didn't really wanna delve too much into other team schedules. I really just wanted to focus on ours,
Right,
but,
right,
yeah, I think the Steelers actually might make more noise than the Browns, which isn't really isn't a shocker considering the moves they made over the offseason and in the draft
right.
compared to the, moves that the Browns made, hardly any. But
They currently have the Bills sitting at, 12, I believe, yeah, 12 and 5. That's where I believe this Bills
12 and
team,
5.
because 12 and 5. There's a possibility to where they can win 13. I think 13 might be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah,
I really feel
very
like
much
there's
a
no,
stretch.
like, range. I don't have a range for the Bills this year. Like, last year, I could say the Bills could have gone, 12 to maybe at most 14 wins. This year, I'm kind of stuck on 12. Like, it does is 13 overhyping, the Bills. Not saying, you don't I want to overhype my team, like say, yes, this could be a 13-win team. But, there's so many question marks, for this Buffalo Bills, at least on the offensive side, about how, Josh and the receivers are just going to mesh together. What is the offense going to look like in the first, 6 games? And, you go
Mhm.
Arizona, Arizona week 1, that should be a win. Then you go Miami, Jacksonville, then you go on the road for 3 straight, with the Ravens,
Yeah.
Texans, and the Jets,
Thir
you
Mhm.
know,
3 straight games that are not easy by any means,
it's tough
especially divisional
because,
games.
the you don't want the Bills to go 2 and 4 in that stretch, in the beginning portion of the stretch, because then you have to play, then that means the Titans and Seahawks and the Miami game, the 3 games after you say you go 2 and 4, all become must wins. And then you either go into KC, at 500, or you're game over 500, and then you go into that next stretch. So it's important for the Bills, I say, in that first 6 game sets, in that 6 games, it's going to be, I think the Bills have to go 4 and 2 in that
Mhm.
stretch. 3 and
Absolutely.
3 happy medium. You get out there with the 500 record, and you can
Mhm.
win the next three, drop the one to Indy if you want, or just, I would prefer if you're going to drop any games this year, it's probably drop the one in Seattle if you end up 3-3, so you don't have to lose to an AFC division, an AFC opponent, and because that could be important for tiebreakers late in the season.
Mhm.
So if you're
Yeah.
gonna drop something against the NFC side,
Yep.
so just drop the
You were gonna
Seattle game
Yep.
and win the next couple.
Yep.
So
You said exactly what I was going to say. If you drop a game that you theoretically should win, it's best if you drop a game to either the Cardinals, the
mhm,
Seahawks, the Rams, or the Lions. All the NFC teams on your schedule. And those are the games that I think the Bills should win that they might not win. Well, they should win. I don't think I'm not going to go and say, oh, yeah, the Bills are definitely going to win this game because there's no game on this schedule that makes me instantly believe, oh, yeah, lock the Bills in to win.
like,
If
on
you're going to
paper, the
drop a
Bills
game,
should go 4-0 against the A they should be able to be, on paper, handle their business week 1 against the Cardinals. They should handle their business against Seattle. I think Seattle gives the Bills a fight, but I think the Bills still win by 2 touchdowns. That's how I'm thinking right now. December 1st, after the bye week, I still think the Bills have that upper hand. It's Monday Night Football, and it's in your house. And it's
hmm
December. The 49ers is coming from the West Coast, and they're gonna have to come to you in the cold. I think the Bills should be able to win that. I think that's like a 3 to a 10 point win. That could obviously backfire in the Bills and be a 3 to 10 point loss. Any which way, I still think I would be okay with it. Just depends on the Bills' record at that point. Then
hmm
you have to go on the road to LA. The Bills are incredible at SoFi Stadium, and they manhandled the Rams before, and so they manhandled the Rams before at SoFi. So guess what? They could do it again.
hmm
The one team that I say on the NFC schedule that gives me the most worry is the Lions late in the year. Would prefer
the
that to be
Lions
an
late in the
early in
year,
the year matchup.
the Lions late in the year, and not the 49ers who could be in contention for the number one seed in the NFC.
I feel like the Lions late in the
Interesting.
year, they're just a different team than what they are in the beginning of the year. You know, they're getting ready at that point would be getting ready for possible NFC North, winning their division and possibly maybe a 1 seed in the in the NFC. Just depends how they go through their schedule. And, with Dan Campbell and that being the second game of a two game road trip for the Bills, that could be a little tough for the Bills. Have to go to
hmm
LA, then travel they would travel back home and then to Detroit. So I would think, that would be a little difficult for the Bills, in December, have to, do all that travel, from LA to Buffalo, Buffalo to Detroit. It
hmm
could that could be a game where the Bills could win by 2 scores, but it could also be, a game,
Or lose in heartbreaking fashion.
right, lose to
That would
heartbreaking
suck.
fashion, or they win and they have a slump game against a late season trap game against the Patriots.
Hey,
That
now,
could possibly happen.
yeah, it could. There's no such thing on this schedule as a trap game, at least right now. That's another thing that I want to make sure we're all aware of. Just because a schedule looks tough on paper does not mean that it will be that same level of tough mid-season. Think about it from this perspective. Obviously, we hope that there are no key injuries on any of these teams. We all want players to be as healthy as possible because that's what makes the game fun to watch. But imagine a scenario in which a key player or two on any of these teams that might have been considered competition, like let's just use the Jets as an example because it happened last year. The Jets all of a sudden went from this marquee matchup to a team that Everybody is just expecting the walkover because they've had injuries at key positions. I mean, look at what happened to both the Dolphins and the Bills against the Chiefs in the playoffs. Injuries killed them both. So
Mhm.
just because a schedule on paper looks tough does not mean that it will be that same level of tough going into the season. So keep your records kind of low because everybody right now is obviously, oh, my team's a 12 or 13 win team. Yeah, you say that now, but we'll just see what it looks like going into the season because who knows how many of these teams you run into later in the year that are dealing with injuries at key positions. So
Sure.
that is something to keep an eye on going into the season. But you don't wish for injuries on anybody. So you hope that these are all healthy games because that's what makes this sport fun to watch.
Absolutely.
But
You
it's all
know,
things to consider going forward with the schedule. So there is that, and that pretty much sums up what I wanted to discuss with the schedule for the Bills. Like I said, I definitely believe that we've got at least an 11 win season ahead of us if everything goes well. Maybe we can get 12 wins, but if we somehow did get 13 wins, it would be a very strong 13-win season due to the nature of who we play. On paper, it looks tough, but that's the best kind of schedule to have because that's the kind of schedule that really tests the team's mettle. I'm excited.
right.
I'm really excited, but that's still quite a ways away. I really haven't been in the football space for a while. That's one reason why we skipped out on an episode of Connor's Takes is just because mentally I needed a bit of a distraction from football, which thankfully for me, I have all season in motorsports, as you can obviously tell behind me. And this weekend coming up is obviously this is my favorite weekend of the entire year when it comes to sports. Period. Even over the Super Bowl, even over the NFL kickoff, all of it. And that is the Indianapolis 500 weekend. That got me thinking as I was watching the Indy 500 qualifying um and watching practice sessions for it, watching NASCAR's All-Star race last week and them getting ready for the Coca-Cola 600 on the same day as the Indianapolis 500, which to us motorsports fans is known as the greatest weekend in motorsports or the greatest day in motorsports. It's technically not weekend, but it got me thinking, obviously. As those of you who follow me know, my favorite driver is Kyle Larson. And the thing about Kyle Larson that got me kind of thinking, he will be doing what is called the double in the motorsports world, which is he will attempt to run the Indianapolis 500 and the Coca Cola 600 on the same day. 1,100 miles of racing. It is never, it has been accomplished, but very, very few drivers have managed to actually do it. And only one has ever managed to complete the full 1,100 miles. So that got me kind of thinking because Kyle Larson looks like he has a very strong car for the Indianapolis 500. When you look at Kyle Larson from a standpoint of just raw talent in motorsports, he is easily the best raw talent in not only NASCAR, but in a lot of other racing disciplines as well. And especially for how he's already jumped in an IndyCar for the first time in his life and managed to qualify sixth for one of the biggest races of the entire year, it got me kind of thinking. When you try to look at it from Kyle Larson to seeing if there is a comparison that he has or an equivalent in any other sport, you know who that actually makes me think of a lot when it comes to just pure raw talent? That's Josh Allen. If
Mhm.
you think about it, there is a true to life case that you can make an argument for that Josh Allen in the NFL is the best quarterback in terms of just raw talent. If you watch the games that Josh Allen plays versus obviously someone like Patrick Mahomes, who everybody believes is the NFL's best quarterback, people are really saying that Mahomes is the NFL's best quarterback because he can make it work with a bunch of, middle of the pack wide receivers. Josh Allen did the same thing. Remember 2020, Paul?
Yep.
He made it work with a bunch of very middle of the pack wide receivers. I believe
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
that Stephon Diggs' first year in Buffalo, or was that his second year?
That might have been Dick's first year because 2019, let's see. 2020 was his first year in Buffalo.
Mhm.
So
So that
so
was
he was
Stephon Diggs.
yep,
That was Stephon Diggs getting into the offense, melding into a
yep,
new offense. So Josh Allen made it work with Stephon Diggs and a bunch of middle of the pack wide receivers. Josh Allen is on that. People will talk about Mahomes and Allen on the same level, but if you really watch the games that both of them play, how many times do you watch Patrick Mahomes play and you go, "Oh my god, what on earth just happened?" compared to how many times you do that when Josh Allen plays? Trust me, I've had comments from people that I know in the racing circles that don't really watch much football that say that they get more "what on earth just happened" moments when they watch Josh Allen play. For instance, the Steelers game, the wild card game against the Steelers. Remember that 52-yard touchdown run? Wild stuff.
yep.
Remember the remember in I believe it was the regular season game against the Chiefs when Josh
Mhm.
Allen looked like he was going out of bounds, still threw the football and still threw it to a wide open receiver.
Oh, that was amazing.
Josh
That
Allen
was pure gold.
Josh Allen is just an absolute elite talent at the quarterback position. And in terms of raw, unfiltered talent, I definitely give you an argument that he is the best quarterback in the NFL. And how it kind of relates as a comparison is I was thinking about it in terms of his comparison to Kyle Larson. It's very, very accurate. And a lot of the people I know that follow both NASCAR and the Bills, they don't necessarily follow Kyle Larson, but they can see the comparison. When I bring it up to them, they're like, "Oh, I can see it because of Larson's raw talent and Allen's raw talent." And I think what the best part about all of this is, Kyle Larson's car for the Indianapolis 500, he will be driving the number 17. Yet another I wouldn't say it's an ode to Josh Allen because I don't think they know each other, but it just makes even more sense
Josh,
when
I
you
believe,
consider
is
my
an F1
viewpoint.
guy.
Yeah, of course. Josh Allen would be the guy that roots for the most boring motorsport on the planet. I remember tweeting this actually once. We need to get Kyle Larson and Josh Allen to meet each other. Can we just get Josh Allen some tickets to the Indianapolis 500? Bills admin, if you hear me, can you get Josh Allen some Indy 500 tickets, please? I really
He's
want
in
these 2 to meet each other. Like, the minute these 2 meet each other and it goes on social media, I'll just die. I'll be so happy because they are the same athlete in 2 different sports. It's truly wild to consider. Like, you watch Kyle Larson race and you just go, "How on earth does he do this?" Like, on Indianapolis 500 qualifying day, it was the same day as NASCAR's All-Star race. He qualified 6th for the Indy 500. In very limited time in an Indy car, and then immediately got on a helicopter to get on a jet. and flew all the way to North Wilkesboro to race in the All-Star race, and he went from the back of the pack to freaking 4th. He finished 4th in the All-Star race and had a shot to win late in the going. This man's talent is unbelievable, just like Josh Allen. I got thinking about it and I'm just like, yeah, these two are really one and the same. Like Kyle Larson himself is not really an NFL guy either, but if he ever decided to become an NFL guy, I know he grew up in, I believe, 49ers country, but he should just be a Bills fan because he and Josh Allen are the same person. And it's kind of awesome
They
to
do
see.
have pretty much similar personalities. I mean, just based off some motorsports I've, some races I've, tuned into for a few minutes. But like kind of like go back to like what you were talking about, like, with Josh Allen's, he's been able to work with, what he's been given.
Mhm.
You go into 2019, the year before, the Bills, got Stephon Diggs. The Bills wide receivers was led by John Brown and Cole Beasley.
Oh,
Then
jeez.
Robert Foster and Zay Jones and Isaiah McKenzie were the notable others for the Buffalo Bills in that season. And you go back to 2019, a lot of the deep ball stuff, was with Robert Foster and John Brown. Like those two were, were kind of like the Josh Allen's, go to. Josh Allen at that point, his salary he was making $570,000 at that point of his NFL
Mhm.
career. So, working with that and, that being his second season in the NFL because he was drafted the year prior in 2018, and you go into Josh Allen's third year, which was his breakout year. The Bills grab Stephon Diggs. They go draft Gabe Davis to accompany with John Brown and Cole Beasley. And that's really has been, the prime of the wide receiver room around Josh Allen is Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. And you could really say John Brown and Cole Beasley, in 2020 and for some parts of 2021, that was a short-lived, really good, a really solid wide receiver room for the Buffalo Bills. And if you keep looking at it again, the Bills didn't have a strong running back room to
Mhm.
accompany a great passing offense in 2020, which led them to the Bills surprising the world and going to the AFC Championship game that
Mhm.
year, and they haven't been there since. You look at the Bills wide receiver room, it like this year, it's kind of going back to their old roots.
Mhm.
Building the wide receiver from the ground up. Your comparison, is Josh Allen to Kyle Larson. I just thought about this in more kind of like a baseball or hockey way because they have their farm systems and they can bring these young talent up. The
Mhm.
Bills kind of in some ways, I feel like that's kind of how the Bills are trying to build their wide receiver room. They're trying to build from the bottom up with the
Mm.
draft and just
Actually.
recruiting these smaller, these younger wide receivers with Josh Allen, who just turned 28. you know
Mhm.
He's getting a little older. He's still going to have his athletic abilities until his early 30s. But, young wide receiver room, get guys open and off they go. And, just the talent of Josh Allen,
Mhm.
you know, it wouldn't say his talent is raw anymore because that's what he was the first few years, before his breaking point. He
Mhm.
still has things to learn. He still has to fine tune. And I think, he's been fine tuning, you know, things every single year.
Mhm.
If I look at the next 5 years, between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, I think Josh Allen has in the next 5 years will have a better 5 years than Patrick Mahomes will.
Shoot! I
I
thought I was
feel
the one with
that's
the hot takes.
I feel like that's where it's going to go because Patrick Mahomes has his Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes has all them accolades, and there's
Mhm.
just going to be a point where at this point, Josh Allen, there's the durability side comes into this. You know, Josh Allen has been able to stay healthy and he's been able to play in games.
Mhm.
Patrick Mahomes, that ankle injury, that ankle injury and toe injuries they keep turning up on Patrick Mahomes. Eventually, that might
Mhm.
come, as he gets closer to 30, in the NFL, ankle injuries and your mobility becomes a factor. And that
Mhm.
comes into a factor that for Patrick Mahomes and who might his receivers be and what does the competition look like. And I think Josh Allen is more built for the next 5 years than what Patrick
Maybe he
Mahomes, who
is.
just came into automatic success.
You know what? You actually made me think of something, Paul. I am going to use a visual aid. I'm going to
Hmm.
use a visual aid for this, as a matter of fact.
Hmm.
If I could figure out. All right, hang on. All right, I am going to use a visual aid because you made me think of this and I want to bring it up. So, if I can get this visual aid to run, that is Kyle Larson in the exact same position that Josh Allen was in his rookie season with a bunch of nobodies and a bunch of very middle of the road team members. In terms of NASCAR, it would be a very middle of the road team and a very unproven pit crew. And look at what Kyle Larson was able to do. That was his first win back in 2016, 2 years after his rookie season, when everybody thought this was going to be his breakout season. He was doing the same exact thing, which was a, you know, unproven team, very unproven um, track record, and look at what he was able to do. That was his first
Hmm.
win. Everybody knew at that point that he was here. So at the end of the day, they are one and the same, exactly as we've been talking about. You can continue to make case after case after case about how they are basically the same person. And that just leads me to fuel even more that I really just need these two to meet each other. I need Kyle Larson and Josh Allen to meet each other desperately. But
Yeah.
that was pretty much all I had on that take. Ooh, we have a
Let's
fun
get
one
into our
to end
final
off.
topic tonight
Yeah, we have a very fun one
because
to end off on.
this is a very interesting topic because it revolves around the AFC East
Mhm.
and it revolves around the Miami Dolphins, as it always seems like it has to revolve around them.
Duh.
You know,
They already won the division if you
Tua.
talk to their fans.
Tua is a very interesting quarterback. You know,
Mhm.
to me personally, I feel like he came out a year too early. I think he still had another year. He still had another year of eligibility left. And he came out to the NFL, after he had that I believe that rib injury or maybe it was a leg injury
It was a hip
in
injury if you're
college.
talking about
Yeah, the
Tua.
hip injury. Mhm. That hip injury, then he decided, I'm still gonna go to the NFL. Honestly, to me personally, I thought he was gonna stay another year. And now we're getting toward the end of his rookie deal. And where is he gonna go? Is he staying in Miami? Is he going to get franchise tagged, or is he going to test the open waters and leave Miami in a standing ground
Oh,
where
man.
they might have to go find their next quarterback? They were interested in Deshaun Watson when that whole thing was going around, or just a little bit before that. Like they didn't know if you know they lost a first round pick tampering with Tom Brady. So
Haha.
they were look you know, while Tua was developing and turning into the quarterback that he is now, and he still has lots of room to grow, they were shopping him basically behind closed doors. Tom Brady, Deshaun Watson. I mean, maybe they were looking at Kirk Cousins at one point. They were actively searching, and at this point they still might be actively searching to find Tua's replacement, because Tua just declined a a contract offer given to him. As we'll pull up the tweet, we'll break this down. We'll look at this in a second. But basically, the numbers that were given were 50 to 50, 52 to 55 million dollars. That was the total about what he might make per season during this contract. Joe Burrow has that similar contract, about 55
Wild.
ish million, and that takes about 24.4% of the cap space in Cincinnati. Only Josh Allen is next. But the
Hmm.
lowest number on that point was Jared Goff. So he's going to
Jared
make
Goff.
anywhere top 10 money in the NFL. And he basically said, no, I don't want a 52 to $55 million per year contract. So
Like, is he
is
for
Tua
real?
is Tua asking for less, or do you think he's asking for more at this point?
He's asking for more. And the wild thing to me is if you're really asking for more, considering the price range, of quarterbacks that get paid a similar amount, like you said, Joe Burrow, are you really going to sit up here and say Joe Burrow is better or Tua Tagovailoa is better than Joe Burrow? I don't think many people would say that. Let's be completely honest. N- Most people would not say Joe Burrow is worse than Tagovailoa unless you're a Dolphins fan. But comparing him to Jared Goff is kind of wild too. I think they're about the same tier of quarterback. Really
Mhm,
good, but not great. Like you're not going to be able to carry a team to relevance all on your own. Like you need to have a good system behind you. So the fact that he's trying to get paid more and is missing OTAs for that
yeah,
purpose, to me is just wild. Because if you pay him any more, who are you going to like? What is your comparison at this point? Who are you saying like you're going to be making as much money as if you want more money? Like, are you really asking for elite level quarterback money when you are nowhere
mhm.
near an elite quarterback? Like, to me, that's just crazy.
Yeah, well,
Look
let me
into
bring
look
up
into his season.
this. There we go. These are the top 10 quarterbacks that are right now, QB average salary versus, league salary cap at signing. At signing, Joe Burrow is making 24% of the Cincinnati's cap space. And when Josh Allen signed, that was
Mhm.
that was
Look at that.
23%. Josh Allen with contract restrictions, you know, and redoing Josh Allen's contract, Josh Allen's contract is right now being looked like a steal at this point. If Tua
Mhm.
decides to sign for if he 60 million, I mean $60 million for a quarterback per season with Jalen
That's
Waddle.
wild. Jalen Waddle needs to get paid. Javon Holland needs to get paid. Jalen Phillips needs to get paid. They all need to get paid. And if they break the bank on Tua, they're not going to be able to keep everybody. You know what? Where was Javon Holland's tweet about? Let me see if I can find it again. Javon Holland tweeted out something I thought was very interesting considering the current stance about Tua getting paid. Okay, there it is. If Tua ain't getting it done, I'm not getting it done. I'm on the back burner, Javon Holland said of his own contract negotiations. I'm just an employee here. That was per Omar Kelly of the Sun Sentinel. That's
He was a
wild. That's
UFA.
wild. Like,
He was a
okay.
UFA this season, off season.
hmm
He's
Here,
UFA in 2025.
hmm here's the thing, okay? If he gets paid more, he's going to be put in the average salary range of Burrow, Allen, Herbert, and Lamar Jackson. Paul, would you say off the top of your head right now that Tua Tagovailoa is better than any of the top 4 quarterbacks in the average salary right now? Yes or no? Would you say it? Would you say he's better than any of them?
Off the quarterbacks that you just listed? No,
Yeah, the top
absolutely not.
4.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely not.
Look at
You know
look at how he's performed in the seasons that he's been the starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. Let's actually segue to how he's looked under the Mike McDaniel regime, considering the fact that Brian
mhm,
Flores was trying to sabotage him. So that really doesn't count too much. Look at it this way. Tua's first year in the Mike McDaniel system, where he looked like he was going to finally be the quarterback that everybody knew he was going to be, that 6 touchdown game against the Ravens to come back. And then he gets injured. And
mhm,
then he hardly plays after that injury. He comes back and then he just looks kind of average. Then they
mhm.
lose that dud to the Packers. Remember that game? Think Tua came out of the gate real hot, then had a bit of a questionable hit, got
Yeah,
concussed, and never played another snap that year again. And the
mhm,
Dolphins were a first round exit. Then
right.
look at last year. Sure, he played the whole 16-game season or a 17-game season. I'm in the past here. But look at what happened. His play declined. There's no denying his play declined. Tua is not the quarterback that is going to carry a team on his own and who would be deserving of that kind of a payday. It's
Yeah,
wild to me that he turned down the first offer that the Dolphins gave him. That it's
s
just crazy if you think about it because
s
what? I
Spotrac
can't.
has him listed his market value at $49.8 million. Sorry,
$49.8 million. dollars.
49.6. So he's asking for at least $10 million more
Yeah, you got to be. Yeah,
than
you're
his market
crazy.
value.
Yeah, that's just crazy. No way would I if I was Chris Greer in this situation, no way would I do it. No way. You are asking for trouble. And you know what? Here's the thing, Paul. I'm going to segue a little bit.
Sure.
You know how I feel about what I'm about to say next. I hope they do pay Tua exactly what he wants. Because you know why?
He won't
Next
be able to
year,
do anything.
exactly. Next year, they're going to be in the worst kind of cap hell possible, and they are going to be stuck with a quarterback that cannot elevate the team in big
Mhm,
games. They
mhm.
will most likely wind up losing key players that still need to get
Oh,
paid, such as Jalen Waddle, Javon Holland, who I mentioned earlier, and Jalen Phillips. Jalen Phillips, you're coming to us. As soon as that contract extension for Tua hits, I'm counting down the days until Jalen Phillips is a Bill. One of my favorite players on the Dolphins. You will be a Bill soon, sir. Von Miller can't stick around forever. We need Jalen Phillips on the Buffalo Bills. And that will be the time when Tua gets paid and the team can't pay the talent around him, which then causes them to crater. And they'll have to go into their rebuild all over again, especially if Tyreek Hill sticks to what he said and only plays for another 4 years. But
You know, Tua's stats, if you just, if you want to just go off if you want to talk, on field plays different than looking straight at stats, but like from a stat point, he's worth, maybe I think he's worth right at his, right or just a little under his market value. You go from 2020, where he only played 8 games. He started 8 games that year. He had 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Okay. And you go the next year, he played 12. And then, he goes from 11 to 16. And then, let's go from 21 to 23, where he played for most of the season. He played 16 games in 2023. He goes 16 to 29. There's the incremental there's that incremental, growth into it.
mhm,
But
exactly.
he to your point, he's not the quarterback that's going to elevate the people around him.
Mhm,
He's not that quarterback. He's still at this point doesn't have the arm strength as some of these other quarterbacks, some of these other top quarterbacks that are ahead of him or in that we're just in that top, full range, like excluding Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson doesn't have much arm strength either. So, eliminate him, four of the top five highest paid quarterbacks, quote unquote, you could say,
mhm,
you know, have more have more of the talent to elevate the, wide receivers around them. You know, Lamar
mhm,
Jackson, he has that running ability that he can elevate the team in a different
mhm.
way. Tua is just Tua.
Actually,
He doesn't have anything flashy with him. He
actually,
just has
I'm
wide
gonna stop you
receivers
right
that can do sure.
I'm gonna stop you right there because he did. When he was at Alabama, you have to watch the Alabama tape. He was a very, very mobile quarterback. He could throw the ball and he could run the ball, and he wasn't afraid to run for extra yards. Even in the
Mhm.
2021 season under Brian Flores, you saw him literally truck a defender in one of the Jets games. Like that was his strength for the longest time. Then after he had that injury riddled season in 2022,
Oh.
it seemed as if his focus then was to kind of bulk up and bulk up in an attempt to stay healthy. And he did, and it worked out, but he lost all the mobility, which was one of his best traits as a quarterback. You take away the fact that Tua can no longer run, and
Yeah.
yeah, he's not the quarterback he was. If he figured a way out to get if he figured out a way to incorporate his old flashy running ability with his improved play in the NFL, he would be a very dangerous quarterback. I
Mhm.
still don't think he'd be at the echelon of Mahomes and Allen, but that's because these two are completely separate from the rest of the quarterbacks in the league, and you can't change my mind. I think Tua can be great, but he'll never be elite, if you know what I mean. So
Right.
to circle back all the way to the end to what we were initially bringing up, he just needs to take the contract. Take a
Yeah, at
contract,
this point.
secure your future in Miami because if he leaves Miami, I highly doubt there's going to be a team out there that's going to be able to give him a similar system that he has in Miami that's going to suit him the best.
Mhm.
And when that does not happen, it's gonna fall apart on him pretty quick.
I agree. I wouldn't call, Tua a system quarterback. He's just not the quarterback that is just going to elevate people. He needs, the extra support around him. You know, with compare him just Josh Allen. Josh Allen with this wide receiver room, he this will work. The wide receiver room will work. It will just need to gel together. The chemistry
Mhm.
will happen, and then Josh Allen will make Keon Coleman look good, and Coleman will make Josh Allen look good. Same thing with Curtis Samuel. Josh will make Curtis Samuel better, and Curtis Samuel will make Josh better. It's just
Mhm.
gonna come together. You know, Tyreek Hill is just is Tyreek Hill. It's not Tua making Tyreek Hill look better. It's literally telling Tyreek Hill, go long, and I'm gonna throw it to you. And then there's Waddle, you know, basically it's just get open backyard football, and that's not really elevating. It's just being the quarterback that you kind of have to be.
Mhm. Precisely. So, do you have any final thoughts, Paul?
No,
You have no
I
final
think we're
thoughts.
good
Come
for
on.
tonight.
I'm sure you
Uh,
have some final thoughts
okay,
somewhere.
let's one last final thought.
I
You
knew
know,
it.
I'm gonna go back to what we talked about in the beginning. Is that with the schedule and just one small thing we didn't hit on, but there's a lot of people sleeping, I believe, on the Buffalo Bills this season.
Mhm.
It's less national media attention, not really much of talking around, you know, anywhere else. It's been really quiet in, the circles of talking about the Buffalo Bills. A lot of people sleeping on us. Think the NFL is doing that too. I think Mike North is doing that too. Scheduling. You look at the Bills' schedule, 5 primetime games.
Mhm.
4 of the 5 are within the first, like, 8 weeks of the season. One of them ends up being the December game at home against the 49ers later in the season. They front
Mhm.
loaded the Bills' primetime window. Maybe they're thinking that the Bills are going to fall off or have that mid-season lull, and something's going to happen and something's going to catch up on us. And this is the year the Bills missed the playoffs, and I think they
Oh,
had that in
yeah.
the back of their
Yeah.
head. Think that's what they were thinking about. Think the
Uh,
NFL was sleeping on the Bills and national attention. Bring on 2020. Bring the 2020 vibes.
yeah.
I'm all for it.
Actually, I'd argue the vibes are the highest they've ever been, even with considering 2020. This is the most energetic and excited I think we've seen the players on the Bills. So we have a
They're
great
very
year
happy.
ahead of us in store. It's like to segue to the second topic one last time, the fact that people are underestimating the Bills. It's kind of funny. It's like how when Kyle Larson went from Chip Ganassi Racing to Hendrick Motorsports, nobody was saying, "Oh, he's going to be awful," but everybody was underestimating the fact that he wasn't going to immediately break out because they were like, "Oh, his crew chief's kind of mid. He didn't really do good with Jimmy Johnson, the greatest driver ever in NASCAR
Mhm.
history," and he proved everybody wrong. So I definitely think that we're in store for a great year with the Bills. I'm excited. Bring on the season, but I can be patient. I got a lot of IndyCar still and NASCAR still to watch. I'm not in a hurry like everybody else. But anyway, Paul, now do you have any final thoughts?
That's it. Message
Alrighty.
clear. Bring the
Alrighty.
season.
Well, that will then conclude this episode of Connor's Takes. It will be uploaded to YouTube very shortly. Make sure you guys are following the hosts and the show on Twitter and YouTube. Also, if you like my racing opinions, be sure to give my racing account at that Florida Guy 5 on Twitter a follow. I'm quite active on there, posting things relating to NASCAR, IndyCar, and all different kinds of races. And yeah, I've been having a lot of fun over there lately because of the excitement building for the Indianapolis 500. And I cannot wait for that. I cannot wait for the start of the regular season in the NFL. It's all going to be very exciting. So, on that note, go Bills and go Kyle Larson.
Go Bills.